Hello everyone and welcome back to another Fam 2 Cents video. Today we're making ham and bean soup. Ingredients list is pretty straightforward. Onions, celery, great northern beans, diced or cubed ham, chicken broth or bouillon, seasoned salt, garlic salt, black pepper, and cayenne pepper. Now this is a very easy and very cheap way to feed a lot of people. I grew up on stuff like this, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let's get into the video. So as usual with a lot of my videos, you guys know the first thing we're going to be doing is chopping up the vegetables. That is the celery and the onions. Cutting up the celery, you want them to be in the smaller chunks. You don't want them to be too big unless you plan on them playing a bigger role in the dish and having a much larger presence. I usually boil them down to the point to where they're almost translucent and they almost completely lose their texture, so you just kind of have the flavor in there. Some people don't like to do that. Depending on how you like it, you're going to cut them to the size you want them to be, but I usually chop them down pretty fine. Next order of business is to add the butter and the olive oil to the bottom of the pan to make somewhat of a coating for when you're simmering the vegetables. It may look like I'm being a bit excessive with the butter and olive oil, but in the case of making soups, especially when you have a lot of vegetables involved that you need to simmer, you're gonna need quite a bit because they're all gonna need to be coated, and that flavor is only going to set up the base of the soup. There's going to be a lot of water and stuff added later, so most of that is going to be diluted, so you need to kind of go a little hard with that. So don't be alarmed, guys, it all comes together in the end. So obviously after you add the butter and the oil and it is fully melted and everything, you add the vegetables and you coat them and make sure they're tossed well inside of the butter and olive oil mixture. This is also the portion where you season the vegetables, just to kind of get that little flavor profile going before everything else is added to the dish. So this is the part where I add the seasonings, the seasoned salt, the garlic, the pepper, and the cayenne. Now this isn't really a season to taste moment because you're kind of just getting a little flavor in there for now. You'll season to taste a little bit later, but just a few notes before we continue on here. As I said before, when cooking soups like this, for me, I like the flavor of the vegetables that I simmer beforehand to be into the soup. But if the soup is like a ham and bean soup, or the highlight is other ingredients, I usually cook them down to where they lose their texture completely. Now you don't have to do that. If you like the kind of flavor or the texture that more hard, or I guess crunchy, if that would be a better word, you know, like celery or just like the onions being more present, then you don't have to simmer them down as much as I did. But I prefer to do that in soups like this because the highlight is the ham and beans, not the celery and the onions. It just adds a bit more depth to it, makes it a little bit thicker. So I like to put a lot in there, but I don't want those to kind of overpower everything else or kind of take over the stars of the show, if you know what I mean. So completely up to you how you want to handle that. That's just how I do things. These videos are just kind of a baseline. You can feel free to tweak however you want to do it. After your veggies have been simmered to your liking, it's time to add the water. I put about 6 cups in there. Depending on the size of your pot or how many people you're feeding, that should be enough. 6 is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of the pots and stuff that I have for cooking soups or whatever. So that's usually my go-to. As I said, depending on how much ingredients you're using and how many people you're feeding, you may need more, but 6 is my recommendation. So this is the portion where you add the ham and beans, but before we get to that, I want to make a correction on my last statement. I said add water, but if you're using just chicken broth, that would be the part where you add the chicken broth. I'm using bouillon cubes this time, so I'll be adding those a little bit later, even though now would be a pretty good time to add them too. So instead of the last step being add water, if you have chicken broth, you'll be adding 6 cups of chicken broth instead, which you can pre-make with the bouillon cubes ahead of time, or you can just toss the bouillon directly into the soup. However you want to handle it, Sorry for that little mistake there, but same deal. Go ahead and toss the ham and beans directly into the soup, give it a nice stir, and at this point you're pretty much done. So this is the portion where you want to do your final seasoning and everything for taste. Once it boils quite a bit and everything is starting to kind of meld together, you want to give it a little taste and season it a bit more to your liking. As you can see, I'm throwing the bouillon cubes in there now, even though I probably should have did that earlier. But as I said, if you're using broth, you wouldn't even worry about this step anyway. But I'm going ahead and tossing them in there now, and just kind of seasoning to my liking. And basically what you want to do is, as it cooks, every 5 minutes or so, come back and give it another taste, just to kind of make sure that the flavor is going in the direction that you want it to go in. Because some of that juice or some of the broth will start to evaporate and the flavors will start to kind of fuse in, and you'll really start to get that flavor profile that you're looking for. And once you've gotten it, you can just pretty much just let it cook until it's finished. And there you guys have it, ham and bean soup, a nice cheap way to feed your family if the struggle bus rolls in. I'll show you guys what to do with the leftover ham and bean soup, which you most likely will have. That's a really interesting way to enhance the dish even afterwards. So make sure you subscribe for more of that. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe and share. This channel is not monetized, so sharing and subscribing is the best way to help support the channel. Share it with everybody you know. Anybody who you know who cooks, who enjoys videos like this, share it around. I want to grow this community. Thanks for watching, guys.